And welcome back to Plain Talk on CIOE 97.5 FM. Jeremy Akerman here with Michelle Raymond and our special guest, Diane Weber-Bederman. Now, there's a whole discussion these days about proliferation of gender. You know that President Trump has rescinded an executive order by his predecessor, which allowed various people to go into whatever washrooms they wanted to, and in the worst cases, presumably, would allow grown men to go into showers and washrooms with little girls. That has been reversed, but it raises the question as to all these genders that people now say we have. I see that the City of New York now recognizes officially 31 genders and takes action against anybody who discriminates against them. A professor somewhere in the States says that there are now over 70. Michelle, what do you think about all this? Are these people trying to destroy civilization, or are they just nuts?
Well, I think there's been a certain amount of analysis beyond what the usual physical facts support. But I actually was able to find the New York City legislation. So in 2002, they actually had a transgender bill. So they have definitions. This is without even getting into the combinations. They talk about cisgender, which is if your body agrees with your perception, your identity is your perception, your expression is how you present yourself, whether as male or female. Then there's your actual sex. Then there's non-conforming. I guess that's if you're not cis. There's intersex if you're somewhere in between. There's a whole lot of words about just basically describing people who are not, or not even describing people. There are a lot of words about individuals' relationship to the way they appear. And I think New York is trying to go down that road, and that's how they've come up with 31 different definitions. Personally, I always like the family washroom. You know, the one that's marked everybody can go in and the baby. And it only accommodates one or two people at most.
At a time.
At a time.
That's the thing. Diane, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think you should have a male bathroom and a female bathroom and then a family bathroom. And for someone, people have shy bowel. They might want to be in their own stall. But this reminds me of, the left makes fun of the religious people who believe in creationism, and yet now they have created something new, that we have 31 different ways of expressing gender. Biologically, there's 2. So I'm not quite, it's as if, I remember reading some feminists were saying, you keep doing this, you'll just wipe out women. It's almost an attack on women. I think if you look like a guy, because you've gone through all of the changes, you go into a men's room. If you've done all the surgery and you look like a woman, no one's going to know. I think the problem is if you say to a man says, well, I'm feeling like a woman today, and he has to go into the woman's bathroom, now you're into creationism.
Yeah, and I noticed one of the categories that somebody has come up with is alternating genders. So from day to day you can have a different gender.
Mm-hmm. That's creationism. That's like living with the dinosaurs. And it's the people on the left that are doing it. And these are the people that call themselves, involved in science. They believe in science.
Well, I think we might be able to agree that when it comes to adults who have feel that they were born into the wrong gender or are questioning their gender, we should at least try to accommodate them and respect them. But when it comes to children, is this not an entirely different matter? I see regularly reports of parents who are encouraging and assisting children to change their gender.
Right.
And last year, the American College of Pediatrics came out with a large report in which they said that transgendering children is tantamount to child abuse, and also puts them in danger of cancer, thrombosis, hypertension, and stroke by virtue of the hormones, testosterone or estrogen, as the case may be, that they're taking. Diane, what do you think?
I think that it's like mass hysteria. I think the idea of transgender for the 0.02% of the world started to get into mainstream, and I think parents started looking for it, and then you become special if you say, well, I have a child and we're going to go through all the process. I think it affects the parent that they feel that they see something in their child and they, oh, well, it's obviously transgender, off to the doctor. Whereas I can't remember the name of the psychiatrist at Sick Kids who was fired because he believed in helping kids work through their issues and not go to the extreme of having surgery and drugs. And because transgender became this new thing, he was fired because he wasn't putting kids into surgery and drugs.
Michelle.
So I think of it as like a mass hysteria, a new disease, everyone found it. You know, it's like Ebola, or we're looking everywhere for Ebola. So now parents are looking, you know, they're going to be special because their child is special.
Michelle.
Well, my feeling certainly with my own children as well was just, you know, one doesn't alter one's child, you know, before a child is actually able to do it for themselves. I mean, whether that includes, you know, in my case, not doing the earring piercing and so on for small children. I just said, you know, allow children to at least reach maturity and make those decisions for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Moving right along, last week in the House of Commons, the Conservative opposition introduced a motion which declared that the crimes committed by ISIS constituted genocide. The motion was supported by the New Democratic Party, the Bloc Québécois, and by 4 backbenchers from the Liberal Party. But the government defeated it by a vote of 166 to 139. Michelle, what do you think about that? All 11 members of Parliament from Nova Scotia voted that, in effect, ISIS crimes were not genocide.
It surprised me coming out of Nova Scotia, actually, but I'm not sure what the basis was. I mean, ISIS certainly seems to have identified its target, and its targets are, you know, people of different faiths.
Christians,
yeah,
Alawites.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, it seems that I would assume that would meet the definition of genocide under the UNHCR.
Now, the Prime Minister's argument was that it was not the business of the House of Commons to determine what was and what was not genocide.
Well, that is true. That's basically a United Nations thing, and it's not happening inside Canada.
Well, you know how I feel about the United Nations.
I know.
But surely the House of Commons has every business expressing
to make a
an
pronouncement.
Opinion.
It does.
Diane,
it does.
What do you think?
What did the House of Commons say during the war in Rwanda?
Nothing.
Wasn't that it? Would declared that the Commons, the House never said a word that this was a genocide?
I can't remember if any motions were passed on that matter in the House of Commons at the time.
You know, I find this outrageous that we can stand up and have Motion 103 declaring Islamophobia is very bad, but you can't stand up and say that ISIS commits genocide. I mean, they almost wiped out the Yazidis. So maybe the House of Commons needs to rethink its priorities.
All right, that's that one. Now, last week in Sweden, the Governor-General David Johnson was in Malmö. You know that Malmö is become very notorious for its no-go zones, for its riots, its looting, its burning, assaults, rapes, and all the rest of it. Mr. Johnson went there and gave a speech in which he said that most Canadians, he said 85%, believe that multiculturalism is our most important symbol of national identity, and that a similar number of Canadians felt very positive about immigration. And he went on to talk about, Canada falling behind in being inclusive and diverse and all the rest of it. And he even went into the whole area of gender parity in wages, lamenting the fact that women earn less than men and all. But what I want to ask you both is this. It is not whether or not you agree with his sentiments or whether or not his sentiments are right. Do you think it's right for the Governor-General to be making that kind of a speech anywhere?
What brought him to be making that speech? That's what I don't understand.
He was visiting Malmö. I don't know if they invited him or he invited himself. Anyway, he praised Malmö as leading the way.
Okay, so it was the flip side of that. Okay. He's
not an elected official.
He's not an elected official, and he's not supposed to be speaking the party line, as the case may be. I would be surprised at it going that far as expressing disappointment and so on. So, no, I think it would have been better restricted.
Diane.
I don't think he should have said anything. It's certainly not that we should model ourselves after Sweden, because that to me would be screaming fake news. That you could stand up and it means you left out half the story of what it is you're associating with and what you want to bring to Canada. But that is odd that he would speak like that. So he would have to have been given the go-ahead by the Prime Minister, wouldn't he?
Yes, and that the views he expressed seem to be so much in sync with the Prime Minister's. That does not strike me as being coincidental. And I
no,
think
I don't. And Michelle, I think I just learned something here. He's not supposed to give a party line. He's supposed to be impartial.
He is supposed to be. He's the titular
Queen's representative.
He's the Queen's representative, the titular head of the country, representing everybody and everybody, no matter what their views may be. I think it's a serious breach of protocol myself.
Well, I don't think the Queen would have said that. So if the Queen wouldn't have said it, then he made a mistake.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
That is an excellent point. Now, speaking of fake news, and we have to go for a break fairly soon, every time I hear turn on CBC radio, they're attacking President Trump. Now that Harper's gone, they have to have somebody to bash and lash and crash and every time they mention in their news, they say that President Trump's historic low approval ratings. It's a lie. Only one president since World War II has dipped below 50%, and that was John F. Kennedy. Most of the others have been down to 30%. Some of them, like Nixon, was down to 28% at one point. Every other president, apart from Kennedy, has dipped way down, and so far Trump's ratings have not gone below 50%. The producer's saying we have to go to a break, but right afterwards I'll ask you for your reaction about the CBC fake news.